This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first, like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Welcome back to Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network. You can follow us on our YouTube channel as well at LA Rams Up. I'm your host, Mark. I'll be joined occasionally by my football gurus, Paul and Ian. Let's get to it. What's going on, Ram fans? Episode 632 here, and going to be a fairly brief episode. We're going to have a lot to talk about tomorrow night at the roundtable, so we're saving a lot of content for that. Going to get you caught up with some news and notes, and going to get through my game picks and power rankings real quickly, limiting it to the playoff teams. We'll talk about the playoff teams, how they stack up, and who I think has a realistic chance of getting to the Super Bowl and who does not. Hey, episode 632, I'm going to talk about a player who wore number 32. I may have talked about him once before, but I don't think I published it. And one of my favorite players from the late 1990s, safety Toby Wright. Now, if you're a younger Ram fan and you're not familiar with those teams right before they left LA and those first few years in St. Louis, and you think that the Rams might have been soft at one time or another, I'll tell you one thing. Toby Wright was as far from a soft football player as you will ever find. 5'11", 212-pound safety out of Nebraska. The Rams drafted him in the second round of the 1994 draft. Spent 1 year with the LA Rams, moved to St. Louis with the team, played 4 years there before leaving for Washington. So he just missed out on the greatest show on turf, but man, this dude looked like a fullback playing safety, and he was paired with Keith Lyle, another heavy hitter. Wow, these two guys back there were something else. And if you want to see what I'm talking about, jump on YouTube, do a search for Roger McGuinn's safety Toby Wright battering ram video, and there's another one highlighting the 1997 game between the Giants and the Rams, published by SW562. So that's Roger McGuinn, Toby Wright the battering ram, and SW562's video highlighting the Rams' Week 4 game with the Giants. Toby Wright, a vicious hitter, great tackler, the battering ram from the late 1990 LA and St. Louis Rams. Wore number 32, one of my favorite players from that era. Some roster news to share. The Rams made 3 moves, all of them more or less expected, I think. Blake Corum placed on injured reserve, and I had said yesterday, the last episode I published, that the Rams had to make a move of some degree as far as the running back group goes, and they did. They brought back Royce Freeman. Remember, he spent some time with the Rams last year, knows the system, bigger back. He was added to the practice squad. So the Rams right now will roll with Kyron Williams, Ronnie Rivers, and Cody Schrader with Freeman on the practice squad. And I think Freeman would be a good candidate to elevate from the practice squad for the playoff game against the Vikings. And the Rams also designated safety John Johnson for return. Does that mean he'll play against the Vikings? No, but the fact that the Rams chose to do this now would indicate he will be active for the game. That means someone will actually be moved off the roster, of course. Just guessing here, but I think that's how that's going to play out. So John Johnson likely on the roster for the playoff game. Royce Freeman on the practice squad, a good candidate to elevate for the game, and Blake Corum on IR. And nothing on Hunter Long, so what that tells me is not a serious injury. He should be good to go. The Rams tight end group, 4 guys, I think they will all be active for the game against the Vikings. And by the way, as a reminder, I went over this, I think it was last week. The Rams had one more move they could make from injured reserve during the regular season. They did not use it. They get two more during the playoffs. So the one from the regular season carried over, giving them three. They now have used one to designate John Johnson for return. So they have two such moves remaining. So what other moves might they make? Well, I don't think it's going to be in the defensive backfield. Right now they have 5 cornerbacks: Kobe Durant, Akilla Witherspoon, Emmanuel Forbes, Darius Williams, and Josh Wallace. And then with Johnson added to the roster, that would give them 5 there as well. 5 safeties, counting Quentin Lake, then Jalen McCullough, Cam Kinchins, and Cameron Curl. Pretty rock solid group, isn't it? And by the way, with Freeman added to the practice squad, the Rams released from the practice squad safety Quindell Johnson. Hey, before we get into my game picks and power rankings, thought it'd be fun to run through these playoff teams and see what significant Ram connections exist for each of these rosters. And we'll start with these AFC teams. Now, I may be missing some, not necessarily listing all of the connections, just the ones that jumped out at me. That might be a little interesting. We'll start with the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, you got it. Backup quarterback Carson Wentz. And the Buffalo Bills. Safety Taylor Rapp. And who is on the Baltimore Ravens roster now? Tre'Davious White, who was the starting cornerback for the Rams on opening day. And the Houston Texans, probably all of our favorite ex-Ram. That's right, Robert Woods. And the Chargers. Kicker Cameron Dicker, although I don't think he was ever actually on a Rams roster, at least during the season. And defensive lineman Morgan Fox, still with the Chargers. And the Denver Broncos, been around for a while now. John Franklin Myers, remember the Rams drafted him, gave up on him way too early. He signed with the Jets and had a really nice career with them, and now he's with the Broncos. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, another ex-Rams wide receiver, Van Jefferson. Jumping over to the NFC, if you're watching the Vikings and the Rams Monday night, you might see a little bit of 2 ex-Rams, backup tight end Johnny Munt, great blocker, and running back Cam Akers, who has really rejuvenated his career there. Had a key catch to seal that win against Seattle, and had some nice runs against the Lions the other night. Speaking of the Lions, I was scratching my head, are there any ex-Rams on the Lions? And then I had to slap myself. Jared Goff, obviously. And the Packers have 2 ex-Rams, long snapper Matt Orzech, and a cornerback we probably all forgot about, Robert Rochelle. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of my favorite defensive linemen from that Super Bowl run, Greg Gaines, and quarterback Baker Mayfield, of course. The Commanders, can we take credit for Bobby Wagner as an ex-Ram? I guess we can. And Dante Fowler had that big play in New Orleans that helped us get to the Super Bowl in overtime there, getting to Drew Brees. And the Eagles, the only connection I could find on the Philadelphia Eagles is on their practice squad. He bopped around a little bit this year after the Rams let him go, with New England briefly, now with the Eagles. So those are the ex-Rams you can watch in the playoffs this opening weekend anyways. Be back in a second with my game picks, going to pick all the playoff games, and my power rankings. And I'm also going to tell you which playoff teams have no shot at the Super Bowl. So with the regular season over, let's check in on my game picks. I went 11-5 in Week 18. Pete Prisco, for the first time in a while, actually bested me. He went 13-3. We both picked the Falcons, Packers, and Titans to win, so we went 0-3 there. I also got the Bills and Dolphins games wrong, so kudos to Pete for picking the Patriots and Jets in those 2 games. So my lead is back down to 10. I have a 10-pick lead straight up over Pete, picking at a 68% correct rate. And how do I see wildcard weekend playing out? Well, I'm going to take the Ravens over the Steelers, another AFC North bash. And the Ravens, they're just a much better team than the Steelers. I'm not counting the Steelers out. And I think that 10-point spread is crazy. Definitely take the Steelers and the points in this one, but I think the Ravens will win. In the game before that, the Chargers at the Texans. Chargers favored by 3, a road favorite in the playoffs. Texans just haven't been the same over the last few weeks. The Texans were my AFC Super Bowl pick, by the way. I picked the Texans and the Rams to meet in the Super Bowl, but I don't think it's happening. I'm going to take the Chargers in this one. I would not touch that point spread, though. The Sunday morning game, the Broncos at the Bills, another hefty point spread, 8.5 points for the Bills. You know, the Broncos can play some pretty darn good defense, and Josh Allen better take care of the ball in this one. Let's look at it this way. The Bills are plus 24 in takeaway differential. Now, face value, that's a pretty good stat, and it's the mark of a good football team. In fact, the top 8 teams in turnover differential are all in the playoffs. Broncos, by the way, are plus 6. But let's look at this another way. The Bills have won a bunch of football games benefiting from takeaways. If that changes in one particular game, a playoff game, going to be in cold weather against a good defense, that could be enough to flip this game. So I would take the Broncos and the points in this one. The Broncos in the 8.5 points, but I think the Bills will prevail. The Sunday afternoon game, the Packers at the Eagles. Eagles 4.5 point favorites, and this is a tough one to gauge because, number one, Jalen Hurts in concussion protocol. I have a feeling he's going to emerge from that and play. Meanwhile, the Packers have lost Christian Watson. And if he was healthy, I would be all over the Packers. Packers still have a really good group of wide receivers. Both of these teams, by the way, move the ball on the ground really well, and they both are really good at stopping the run. So something's got to give in this one. I'll take the Packers to cover, but I still think the Eagles will win at home. And this is probably, for me, the diciest game to pick, the most difficult game. And then we have Sunday night, the Commanders at Tampa Bay. This could be a crazy, wild, entertaining game. And hey, that's why it's on Sunday night. 2 really fun quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels versus Baker Mayfield. This is just great TV. Bucs are favored by 3. If it's close and Jaden Daniels has the ball in his hands, I think the Commanders are going to pull it off. But I think the Bucs are going to create some distance. They're overall a better roster. I was listening to some gentlemen talk about this game in the morning. The Commanders center, Tyler Biadasz, probably pronounced that wrong. Give me a break. He's working through an injury, an ankle injury, I think it is. And he's got to go up against Tampa Bay's big nose tackle, Vita Vea. Listed at 347 pounds. I think he's bigger than that. And that's going to be an issue for the Commanders then. It's going to be on Jaden Daniels. Really is. I think the Bucs win this game, and I wouldn't touch that point spread either. It's going to be too dynamic of a game. Who knows? Either one of these teams could win by 12, 14 points, or it could come down to the very last possession. But I'm picking the Bucs to win. Rams Vikings, you know where I'm going with that one. I'm going to save my discussion about it for the roundtable because Ian, Paul, and I, Tom may join us as well. We're going to do a deep dive into that game. So I'll save commentary on that for the Wednesday night roundtable. But I'll give you a hint here. The Rams are going to do everything they can to harass Sam Darnold and prove that he can win in a high-pressure environment, a playoff game, against a young, aggressive defense. That's all I'm going to say about that for now. Going to give you an abbreviated version of my power rankings, and I'm going to talk about the 14 playoff teams plus one. One team I want to mention that just missed the playoffs but is worth mentioning, my number 15th ranked team, the Cincinnati Bengals. They had the league's leading passer, the league's leading receiver, and the league leader in sacks, and they are out of the playoffs, and the rest of the AFC is breathing a sigh of relief. And the only reason they're 15th is because for this exercise, top 14 are all playoff teams. Bengals are probably better than a couple of them. Now, My power rankings are pretty straightforward. A couple of changes from last week, but I'm going to tell you which teams have no shot at the Super Bowl at this point of these 14 playoff teams. And whether a team has a shot at the Super Bowl does not necessarily correlate to their ranking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 14 through 1 here, and I'm going to tell you if they have a shot. And you know what? If you have a shot at getting to the Super Bowl, then you have a shot at winning it. So we're really talking about who can get to the Super Bowl. And my number 14 team, the Houston Texans, do not have a shot. They get that home game against the Chargers. They may not even survive that. And even if they do, they're going to have to travel to either Kansas City or Buffalo. They lost their great wide receiver, Tank Dell. Really good football team. CJ Stroud has fallen off a little bit. I'm not sure they're going to beat the Chargers. Picking the Chargers, as you already heard. Texans have no shot at the Super Bowl. My number 13 team is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think they have a shot. And why do they have a shot? Because this offense can put up points. Now, they have to hope they don't have to travel to Philadelphia. That could be a problem playing outdoors there. Not sure what the prospects for that are. But with Baker Mayfield in this offense and some studs on defense, if this team's on, they definitely have a shot. And as a number 3 seed, there's a possibility they'll have 2 home games. So the Bucs, my number 13 ranked team, do have a shot at the Super Bowl. My number 12 ranked team, the Denver Broncos, the rookie quarterback, I really love him, Bo Nix, but in the playoffs, first they're going to Buffalo. If they were to beat Buffalo, they're probably going to Kansas City. Just don't see it happening. So the Broncos do not have a shot. Number 11, the Washington Commanders. They have to get through the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If that game was in Washington, I'd be taking the Commanders, but it is not. So can they win on the road multiple times with a rookie quarterback? And again, much like Bo Nix, I like Jaden Daniels even more. Is he going to get this team to the Super Bowl? I do not see it happening. They do not have a shot. And my number 10 team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't think they have a shot at beating the Ravens. Well, they have a shot. They always have a shot, but I don't think they have what it takes to get to the Super Bowl. As a 6th seed, how many home games are they going to get? Probably 0. It's not in the card for the Steelers. My number 9 team and my number 8 team, the 2 teams from LA, number 9, the Rams, number 8, the Chargers, they both have a shot. They both have the coaching. They both have the quarterback. And the Rams, they have the culture. They've been there before. And the Chargers are building a culture. So, yes, they can definitely get to the Super Bowl. In fact, all of the remaining teams have a shot. My number 7 team, the Minnesota Vikings. That performance against the Lions really concerned me, though. My number 6 team, the Packers. Really good on both sides of the ball. Number 5, the Eagles. I'm betting against them, though. Don't think they can play consistently good football in the playoffs to get there, but they have a shot. And my number 4 team, the Ravens, of course they do. My number 3 team, the Lions, absolutely. My number 2 team, the Buffalo Bills. And my number 1 team, the Chiefs. Yes, they both have a shot. Do the Chiefs have a shot? That's almost a silly question, isn't it? They're probably going to be in the Super Bowl. It's almost unavoidable. Although I think the Ravens and Bills will have something to say about that. So that's my top 14 and the teams that really have a shot at winning the Super Bowl. And again, if you can get to the Super Bowl, you're going to have a shot, that's for sure. But I think some of these teams we can count out. That would be the Steelers, Commanders, Broncos, and Texans. That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.